the day my little sister started kindergarten. I cut my hand on some shattered glass, and the blood wouldn't stop. As I lay there in the bathtub, fading, I called my mom for help. On the other end, I could hear laughter and chatter. Willow, are you pretending to be sick again? Can you stop being so selfish and ruin your sister's special day? Beep, beep, beep. She hung up on me. I watched as the warm water in the tub slowly turned bright red, my body growing colder with every passing second. Later that evening, they came back with a cake to celebrate my sister. And my mom was still complaining about how I was being inconsiderate, hiding in my room all day instead of eating. What she didn't know was, this time I wouldn't be bothering them ever again, because I had already died in that forgotten bathroom. After I was diagnosed with a severe bleeding disorder, I became our family's glass princess. The doctor said I wouldn't live past 5, so my parents put me first in everything, even spending their life savings on my treatments. On my 5th birthday, for the first time in a long time, there was laughter in our house. Only my little sister, Poppy, asked with innocent confusion, Willow, are you going to die tomorrow? That was the first time Dad ever hit her, and Mom knelt beside her, praying to God, begging for just a few more years for me. But on the day of Poppy's first day of kindergarten, all I said was that my chest hurt a little. Suddenly, my mother broke down, her hand cracking across my face. Why are you so cruel? Do you have to ruin everything for your sister? Our entire world revolves around you. Can't we have one single day to take your sister to school? If you want to die, then just die. Stop torturing us. She hurled my pill bottles at me, grabbed Poppy's hand, and slammed the door behind them. I didn't say anything. I just stared at the cut on my arm, at the blood that wouldn't stop as my body grew colder and colder. When the glass shattered, I'd instinctively raised my arm to shield my face. I stared at the gash for a couple of seconds, before I remembered the doctor's words. Sweetheart, you can never, ever get a cut. If you do, the bleeding might not stop. I rushed to find a band-aid and pressed it on. It was soaked through in less than 30 seconds. I turned to get a bandage, but blood was already dripping onto the floor. Mom loves a clean house. Couldn't make another mess for her. I frantically used my sleeve to wipe it up, but the blood just smeared across the tiles, blooming like a terrible flower. I grabbed the nearest towel and wrapped it tightly around my arm. A chill began to set in, starting in my fingertips and seeping deep into my bones. I went into the bathroom and filled the tub with hot water. Lying back in the warmth, I finally felt a little bit of relief. The blood was still flowing, staining the water a pale red. I suddenly missed my parents so much. I used my smartwatch to call my dad. It rang and rang. No answer. I tried my mom. It was loud on her end. Music, the laughter of children. A world of celebration that felt a million miles away from mine. What is it? Hurry up. It's almost Poppy's turn to perform. Mom, I don't feel so good. I'm bleeding. Her voice, sharp with impatience, cut through the phone. You don't feel well again? Is it that you're never well? Unless the entire world is revolving around you? You're 8 years old. You're a big girl. Can't you be a little more considerate for once? The next second, the line went dead, the dial tone echoing in the empty bathroom. I watched the water slowly deep into crimson, and felt a sudden urge to cry. Mom was right. I was always causing trouble for everyone. My sickness was trouble, my sadness was trouble, and now my bleeding was trouble. Mom's knitted cardigan was draped over the side of the tub. I gently pulled it over my face, inhaling her familiar jasmine scent. It was like when I was little, and she'd sat by my bed just like this when I had a fever. The water was growing cold. The bleeding seemed to be slowing down. It must be almost all gone. As my head started to feel fuzzy, I wondered if all my blood runs out, will I finally be okay? Mom and Dad wouldn't have to worry about their sick daughter anymore. My sister wouldn't have to give up everything for me, and I wouldn't have to pretend to be strong anymore. Wouldn't have to bite down on my own hand to keep from crying out in pain. In the middle of the night, I curled up in the tub, feeling as safe as I must have in my mother's womb before. I was. When I opened my eyes again, I was looking down at my own small, pale body floating in the tub. So I was dead. I heard the front door open, followed by my sister's cheerful voice. Willow, I'm home. I rushed out to see them. Mom and Dad were back, holding Poppy's hands. Dad was carrying a strawberry cake. He stopped short when he saw the mess in the living room. What happened here? Mom's brow furrowed. She threw a tantrum this morning. She lied about being sick because she was mad. I was taking Poppy to school. Dad's face darkened. She's getting more and more inconsiderate. I tried to explain, waving my hands frantically in front of them. No, that's not it. Willow wasn't trying to make you mad. But my hands passed right through my father's shoulder. They didn't notice a thing. Poppy pulled her hand free from Mom's and ran to my bedroom door. She knocked softly. Willow, come out and have some cake. Silence. She looked up at them. Is Willow asleep? I floated over and hugged her. Thank you, Poppy. Mom's voice was hard. She's not asleep. She's ignoring us on purpose. Leave her. We'll eat first. Dad set the cake on the dining table. Poppy stared at it, her voice small. But I want to wait for Willow. Dad opened the box, exchanging a look with Mom. If only Willow were half as thoughtful as her sister. Our lives would be so much easier. He stuck 5 candles in the cake and lit them. Poppy was lifted onto a chair. And as her parents watched, she blew them out. Today was also her 5th birthday. Mom asked gently, "Did you make a wish, Poppy?" Poppy's eyes sparkled. "I did. I wish that Willow." Dad smiled and stroked her hair. "Shh. If you say it out loud, it won't come true." I watched from the side, a silent observer. On my birthdays, the house always smelled of medicine. The number of candles on the cake felt more like a countdown. But Poppy's birthday finally looked like a real birthday. When it was time to cut the cake, Poppy insisted on the biggest piece. "This one is for Willow." She carried the plate to my bedroom door and knocked again. "Willow, come have some strawberry cake with me." Still no response. The smile on Poppy's face slowly faded. She carried the plate back to the table. "Willow won't answer me," she said quietly. Suddenly Dad reached out and snatched the plate from her hands. He threw the whole thing, the perfectly frosted slice of strawberry cake, to the trash can. He slammed his hand on the table. "Fine. Then she can have nothing. Nobody is a call for her again. A few missed meals will teach her a lesson." Poppy was so startled, her eyes instantly filled with tears. Mom pulled her into her arms, glaring at Dad. "Why are you yelling at her?" Then she spoke softly to Poppy. "It's okay, sweetie. We'll eat first. When your sister realizes she was wrong, she'll come out on her own." I knelt by the trash can, looking at the discarded cake. The strawberry on top was still so fresh, now nestled among used tissues. What a waste. Strawberry was my favorite. Poppy ate her own small slice, her eyes darting toward my door every few seconds. My parents ate in a heavy silence. There were supposed to be 4 of us at the table. Now 1 chair was empty. I sat down in it and whispered to my sister, "Happy birthday." That evening, Mom gave Poppy a bath. I stood in front of the shower curtain, my heart twisting into a knot, terrified she would pull it back and see me in the tub. The steam. Mom lathered soap on Poppy's back. Poppy looked up, her wet hair stuck to her forehead. "Mommy, why hasn't Willow come out yet?" Mom's hands paused for a moment. "She's probably sleeping. But I miss her," Poppy said in a small voice. "I haven't seen her all day." Mom turned off the water, wrapped Poppy in a big towel, and hugged her close. "Poppy, do you ever get mad at Mommy and Daddy?" "Mad about what?" Mom held her a little tighter. "That we're always focused on Willow. That we give her the best of everything. That sometimes we don't have enough time for you." Poppy wrapped her small, damp arms around her mother's neck. "No, of course not. Because Willow is sick." Her voice was serious. "My teacher said today that sick people need the most care. Me and Mommy and Daddy have to love her together." My mother's shoulders trembled slightly. She buried her face in Poppy's towel and didn't speak for a long time. "You're such a good girl, Poppy." Her voice was muffled. "The truth is, your sister has had a very hard life." I pressed myself against the cold tiles as my mother continued. "She was born very weak. The doctor said she might not grow up." Mom sniffled, "So we were always scared." "She was in pain, scared. She was sad. We just wanted to give her everything we could." Her voice dropped to a whisper. "But sometimes Mommy gets tired, too. Sometimes I wish she were healthier. I wish I had more time to spend with you." Poppy listened, not quite understanding, and patted her mother's back with her small hand. I crouched in the corner, transparent tears streaming down my face. "I am sorry, Mom. I was the one who wasn't considerate. If I had never existed, how much better your lives would have been with just Poppy." But they couldn't hear me. After the bath, Mom tucked Poppy into bed. Then she walked to my bedroom door and stood there for a long time. Finally she raised her hand and knocked softly. "Willow, are you asleep?" I floated in front of her, wanting to reach out and touch her. But my fingertips passed through empty air. "I shouldn't have yelled at you today, Willow. I was wrong. It was Poppy's first day of school, and I was just so nervous. I didn't mean to be harsh." She paused as if waiting for a reply that would never come. She sighed. "I left some cake for you in the living room. It's your favorite strawberry. Make sure you eat it." She waited another few seconds before returning to her room and closing the door. I went to the living room. On the table was a small plate with a slice of cake. This strawberry on top was a little crooked. Late into the night, I watched my own small body in the tub. The water was cold now, my face as white as paper. My mother never opened the shower curtain. She didn't know that I would never eat the cake she left for me, and that I would never hear her apology. The sun rose with cruel indifference. I sat on the bathroom counter, swinging my spectral legs, watching the morning light filter through the frosted window. It illuminated the dust motes dancing in the air, oblivious to the tragedy contained within the tub. Down the hall, the alarm clock buzzed. David. My mom's voice was groggy. Turn it off. It's 7 o'clock. I drifted through the door, moving unseen through the hallway. The house smelled of stale icing and the faint, lingering scent of extinguished candles. The strawberry cake sat on the table, the cream beginning to separate in the heat. A monument to a celebration that felt like a lifetime ago. I'll get the coffee, Dad grumbled. He walked right through me in the hallway. He looked tired. He hadn't slept well. I had watched him toss and turn, haunted perhaps by a quiet house that shouldn't have been this quiet. Mom went to Poppy's room first. Wake up, birthday girl. Day 2 of kindergarten. Poppy woke up with a smile, clutching her new teddy bear. Is Willow up? Can she eat cake for breakfast? Mom's face tightened. The annoyance returned, a familiar mask. Willow is probably still sulking. She didn't eat dinner. She can wait. I followed Mom to the kitchen. She started making toast. The routine was suffocating. Every second that ticked by was a second closer to the scream I knew was coming. I need to give her morning meds, Mom said, glancing at the clock. If she misses the dose, her platelet count will drop. It doesn't matter, Mom, I whispered, though the sound was just a draft of cold air. I don't have any blood left to clot. Mom wiped her hands on a dish towel and walked down the hallway to my room. She opened the door. The bed was made. The sheets were smooth, undisturbed. Willow. She checked the closet. She checked under the bed. A flicker of panic began to ignite in her chest, a small, hot coal of fear. David, she called out. Is Willow in the garage with you? No. Dad yelled back from the living room. Mom stood in the hallway. There was only one door closed. The bathroom. She tried the handle. Locked. Willow, open this door, she said, her voice sharp. This isn't funny. You need your medicine. Silence. Willow. She knocked harder. Stop this attention-seeking behavior right now. I hovered right beside her. Don't look, I wanted to say. Please just call the police. Don't look. David. Mom screamed. She's locked herself in. Dad came running, annoyance written on his features. For Christ's sake, Willow. I'm going to take the door off the hinges if you don't open it. He waited 3 seconds. Then he used a coin to twist the emergency lock on the handle. The mechanism clicked. The door swung open. The smell hit them first. It wasn't just the metallic tang of blood. It was the smell of cold, damp finality. The jasmine scent of Mom's cardigan was heavy in the air, mixed with iron. Dad stepped in. He froze. The water was opaque. A deep, dark rust color that looked almost black in the shadows. My body lay there, small and white as porcelain, submerged up to my chin. The cardigan covered my face like a shroud, soaked and heavy. Oh God, Dad whispered. It was a sound I had never heard a human make, like all the air had been punched out of his soul. Mom pushed past him. Willow. She reached into the water. The coldness of it made her recoil, but she forced her hand down, grabbing my shoulder. She pulled. My body was stiff. The cardigan slid off my face. My eyes were closed, my lips blue. The band-aid on my arm peeled away, revealing the jagged gash that had drained the life out of me. Mom didn't scream. She made a noise like a dying animal, a high-pitched keening that shattered the morning. She fell to her knees in the red water, ruining her pants, splashing the terrible flour on the tiles even wider. No, 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 she chanted, pulling my wet, cold body against her chest. She rocked back and forth, soaking herself in the bloody water. Wake up. Baby, wake up. Mommy's sorry. Mommy's here. Dad was backing away, his hands in his hair. Call 911, he choked out, but he couldn't move. He was staring at the towel on the floor, the one I had tried to use to clean up. He was staring at the smear on the tiles where I had tried to protect them from my mess. I didn't want to make a mess, Mom, I whispered. I tried. Poppy appeared in the hallway, rubbing her eyes. Mommy. Dad spun around, his face a mask of horror. He tackled Poppy before she could reach the door, covering her eyes, dragging her away. Don't look, Poppy. Don't you look. But she had seen the red water. She had seen her sister's arm hanging limp over the side of the tub. The police arrived. Then the coroner. The house was full of static and voices. I sat on top of the refrigerator, watching. They interviewed my parents in separate rooms. The suspicion was heavy in the air. Neglect. That was the word the officer used in a hushed tone to his partner. Why didn't you check on her? The detective asked Mom. Mom was wrapped in a blanket, shivering, her eyes 1,000-yard stares. I thought she was sleeping. She was mad at us. She has a severe bleeding disorder, ma'am. And you didn't check on her for 12 hours? She locked the door, Mom whispered. She was hiding. We found her phone, the detective said. He placed my smartwatch and my phone on the table in an evidence bag. And yours, Mrs. Thorne. Mom looked up. She called you, the detective said. His voice was devoid of sympathy. At 6:14 p.m., the call lasted 22 seconds. Mom went pale. The memory hit her like a physical blow. The party. The noise. The impatience. Is it that you're never well unless the entire world is revolving around you? Mom gagged. She leaned over and vomited onto the floor. She told you she was bleeding, didn't she? The detective pressed. I didn't believe her, she sobbed. She lied that morning. She said her chest hurt to get out of dropping Poppy off. I thought she was jealous. The detective looked at Dad, who was standing in the doorway. Dad looked destroyed. She called me too, Dad said, his voice hollow. 6:13 p.m. I didn't answer. Why not? I was driving. I thought she was calling to complain about the cake. The detective closed his notebook. It appears the cause of death was hypovolemic shock due to exsanguination. She tried to bandage it herself. She tried to clean it up. He looked at them with cold judgment. She died trying not to bother you. That sentence broke my father. He slid down the wall, burying his face in his hands, weeping uncontrollable, ugly sobs. The funeral was small. It rained. They buried me in a small white casket. The glass princess, the priest called me. Poppy held Mom's hand. She wasn't crying. She looked angry. She was only 5, but trauma ages you. She understood that I was in the box, and she understood that the box was going into the ground. Willow is cold, Poppy said loudly during the prayer. Shoo, Mom hissed. She was cold in the water, Poppy insisted. Why didn't you get her out? The guests exchanged looks. The neighbors whispered. They let her bleed out. They were eating cake. I stood by the grave. I tried to hold Dad's hand, but he was shaking too much. He smelled of whiskey. It was 11 a.m. After the funeral, the house became a tomb. Mom couldn't stop cleaning. She scrubbed the bathroom tiles until the grout disintegrated. She replaced the bathtub, but she refused to step foot in that room. She used the guest bath. Dad stopped working. He sat in the living room, staring at the blank TV screen. They didn't talk. The blame was a third person living in the house. One night, 3 weeks later, it exploded. You hung up on her. Dad screamed. He threw a glass against the wall. She told you she was dying, and you called her selfish. You threw her cake away. Mom screamed back, her veins bulging in her neck. You told her she could have nothing. You told her to learn a lesson. Well, she learned it, David. She learned she was a burden. You wish she would die. Dad roared. I heard you. If you want to die, then just die. That's what you said that morning. Mom froze. The words hung in the air, sharp as the glass that cut me. I didn't mean it, she whispered. I was just so tired. We killed her, Dad said. He poured another drink. We killed her as surely as if we cut her ourselves. I sat on the stairs, hugging my knees. Please stop, I whispered. I'm okay now. It doesn't hurt. But they couldn't hear me. Poppy sat at the top of the stairs. She was holding the strawberry cake slice, the one from the trash. She had saved the plastic decoration. Willow hates you both, Poppy said. They both looked up. She told me, Poppy lied. Or maybe she believed it. She told me she's glad she's gone. Part 4. The Long Winter. The divorce happened 6 months later. Dad moved into a cheap apartment downtown. Mom kept the house, but she turned my room into a shrine. She left the blood-stained cardigan on the chair. She wouldn't wash it. She said she needed the smell. Poppy grew up in the crossfire. She became the easy child because she was terrified of being the difficult one. She got straight A's. She never complained when she was sick. She learned to cook for herself because Mom spent days in bed, staring at photos of me. I watched Poppy turn 10, then 12, then 15. On her 16th birthday, Poppy came home late. Mom was waiting up. Where have you been? Mom snapped. I made a cake. Poppy looked at the cake. Strawberry. I hate strawberry, Poppy said calmly. Willow liked strawberry. I like chocolate. Don't say her name, Mom whispered. Why? Because you killed her. Mom slapped Poppy. It was the echo of the slap she gave me that morning. The sound was identical. Poppy didn't cry. She touched her cheek and smiled a cold, terrifying smile. Do you want to throw my pills at me too? Poppy asked. Do you want to tell me to just die? Poppy, stop. I found the recording, Poppy said. Mom froze. What? Willow's smartwatch. The police gave it back. You put it in the box in her closet. I charged it. Poppy pulled the watch from her pocket. She recorded a voice memo. While she was in the tub. I drifted closer. I had forgotten about that. As the cold had set in, I had pressed the button. I wanted to say goodbye. Poppy pressed play. The room filled with the sound of running water. Then my weak, breathy voice. Mom. Poppy. I'm sorry about the rug. I tried to clean it. Please don't be mad. The water is nice and warm now. I love you. Happy birthday, Poppy. Eat the strawberry part for me. Then silence. Then the sound of the phone slipping from my hand and hitting the porcelain. Mom fell to the floor. She didn't scream this time. She just broke. She curled into a ball, making small, animal sounds of agony. Poppy looked down at her. She apologized. Poppy said, tears finally streaming down her face. She was dying, and she apologized for the rug. Because you made her feel like her existence was a stain. Poppy walked out of the house. I stayed with Mom. I placed my hand on her shoulder. She shivered. Willow, she whispered. For the first time in 8 years, she felt me. Part 5. The bridge. Poppy went to Dad's apartment. It was a mess. Bottles everywhere. Dad looked 20 years older. Poppy. He squinted at her. She left a recording, Poppy said. She played it for him. Dad listened. He closed his eyes. Tears leaked out, tracking through the grime on his face. I didn't answer, he whispered. I let it ring. You have to fix this, Poppy said. I'm graduating in 2 years. I'm leaving. If you two don't fix this, if you don't forgive yourselves, I'm never coming back. I won't carry the ghost of my sister alone anymore. How do we fix it? Dad asked. She's gone. You stop hiding, Poppy said. We go to the grave. We haven't been in 5 years. The next day, a Sunday, they met at the cemetery. The grass over my grave was overgrown. The headstone was dirty. Willow thorn. Beloved daughter. Mom brought cleaning supplies. Dad brought flowers, white lilies. She hated lilies, I whispered. They smell like funerals. She liked daisies, Poppy said, as if she heard me. The little wild ones. Mom got on her knees and started scrubbing the stone. I'm sorry, she talked to the stone. I'm so sorry, baby. I was weak. I was selfish. Dad stood beside her. I should have protected you. I failed. They spent hours there. They cleaned the grave until it sparkled. They planted daisies. For the first time, they talked about me not as a tragedy, but as a person. Remember how she used to draw on the windows with the condensation? Dad said. Remember how she tried to teach the cat to dance? Mom smiled through her tears. Remember how she always gave me the biggest piece of cake? Poppy said softly. As the sun began to set, the air grew golden. I stood in front of them. I wasn't cold anymore. The water wasn't red. I was wearing my favorite yellow dress, the one I wore before I got sick. I looked at Mom. She looked up, squinting against the sun. Her eyes widened. I looked at Dad. He stopped breathing for a second. I looked at Poppy. She smiled. It's okay, I said. The wind carried my voice through the leaves. I'm okay. I walked over to Mom and wrapped my arms around her. I felt the warmth of her body, the beat of her heart. I forgive you. I moved to Dad. I kissed his cheek. I forgive you. I hugged Poppy. Live for me, Pops. Be loud. Make messes. A sudden lightness took hold of me. The tether that had bound me to the bathroom, to the grief, to the guilt, snapped. I looked up. The sky wasn't just sky, it was a doorway. Did you feel that? Mom whispered. It felt like Jasmine. It felt like a hug, Dad choked out. She's going. Poppy said, looking at the empty space where I stood. She's finally going. I stepped back. The world began to fade into a brilliant, warm white. I wasn't the glass princess anymore. I wasn't the sick girl. I wasn't the burden. I was just Willow. And I was free. Mom, Dad, and Poppy stood by the grave holding hands. They were broken, scarred, and imperfect. But they were together. And as I faded away, I saw Dad reach into his pocket and pull out a strawberry candy. He unwrapped it and placed it on the headstone. Happy birthday, Willow, he whispered. I smiled. And then I was gone.